Tom Golden, it's great to have you back. And part of helping me with my own book on the working title of The Model of the Maturing Man, it may evolve into something else. But one thing that's important I've learned is understanding that it seems to be the men have a core need to be honored and women have a core need to be cherished. And no one's done a good job of explaining the two and what it looks like in behavior, except you did offline. And I wanted to get this videotaped and recorded for others to hear
it. Well, Martin, I'm sorry to tell you, I forgot what I said offline. But we'll go ahead and look at it anyway. You know, being cherished has to do with the woman's sense that she is important to the man in his world. You know, that she is something that he is conscious of and aware of. And then cherishment goes a little bit farther because he's conscious and aware and he wants her to have dominion over her own life. You know, that's kind of...
I'm sorry, there are two real important pieces there. Important in his world and wanting to have her autonomy, because that's where the over-controlling becomes a problem.
Yes, and if you think about cherishing, and you think about if you have a ring that you really love, I mean, you make sure to treat that in a certain way, and that's kind of cherishing that particular possession. And not that she's a possession or not, but that you want to treat her in a way that she knows that she's important in your world. And when women feel that, when they feel that the man is treating them in that way, they'll do anything for him. They'll do anything, you know, because she feels cherished. That's fuel for her, you know?
It's to me, let's take a moment and contrast that to honoring as a way to explore it a little deeper, because I think that's it. I'm going to say honoring is appreciating something a man did without a but.
Or a good but.
Or a good but.
Sorry,
wait a second.
I couldn't help throw that in. Yeah.
But no, you know, it's just, I've seen so many cases where he, you know, someone said, well, I wish my husband treated me as well as you treat your wife. And I don't know that, but the truth is Barbara knows how to honor and appreciate the things I do that makes me want to be a better man. And there aren't buts attached. That doesn't mean there aren't things that she wants help with, but she gets it. And it makes me want to go to war for her every day, not for her, but into the world.
Yes.
And I think that's been lost also. Both have.
Well, I think that, you know, the way I look at it is that men, their fuel has to do with respect and admiration. You know, when women admire men, it's fuel for them. When women respect men, treat him with respect, that's fuel for him. And the tricky part is that you need both cherishing and honoring. You need them both. It's like an engine, you know, a good engine needs gas, it needs spark, and it needs air in the right degree of each. And the same thing's true with cherishing and honoring and respecting and admiring. You know, you need to have all of those cooking, but you need to have them in a certain ratio so that things are going to work. I mean, if one person, if the guy is just cherishing her and she's doing nothing back for him, you're going to fail. It's going to fall apart. If she is doing everything for him and he's doing nothing for her, it's going to fail again. So you got to have both cooking. You have to have both parts that are working.
The misunderstanding of cherishing I see with men is agreeing with everything she wants. And that makes her really hate him with great vengeance. And have no respect for him. So I want to distinguish, you know, having her important and just agreeing with whatever she wants in any context. And usually it's agreeing but not really following through. It's a hidden agenda on it. Yeah, so I'd like to contrast that because I think that's a distinction important to make.
It's such an important task for men to be able to say no to women. You know, and I see it all the time in couples therapy. Couples will come in with, you know, a long history of troubles. And one of the things that almost always happens is the man is not being able to say no. You know, when you can't say no, when you only cherish, when you only give away, that's imbalanced. You know, you've got to think of yourself also. You got to balance it out. You got to say, no, that's not what I want right now. And then she can say, no, this is what I want. Then you fight it out. You know, you have it out. Whereas if you don't learn to say no and you never fight it out, you're always going to lose. And you're going to end up feeling resentful and bitter. Ugh. You know, so saying no is critical.
And I hear it a lot with older men saying, well, whatever she wants is fine. And then I look at the wife and it's like, wow, she has disdain in her eyes most of the time for you, because you've probably done this so long but didn't actually follow through. The problem is if you can't say no, you can't powerfully say yes and actually follow through on your word is one of the pieces, I believe.
Yeah, it's good.
Along with, you know, and I think those are important pieces, because the cherishing being blurred into agreeing with everything and then not following through is a misunderstanding, I see. That's why I wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah.
What is the anatomy of cherishing and honoring?
Yeah, yeah. It's got to be in equal parts, you know.
And you gave a good example of, you know, cherishing symbolically to me is also, it's more of an attention thing, while the honoring feels more like a appreciation thing. You know, I appreciate what you did, but I want you to agree or disagree or
yeah, I tend to think that it's both attention things. I mean,
okay,
his cherishing of her is his paying attention to her, and her respecting and admiring him is her paying attention to him. So I don't see it as one or the other. You know, I see it as both, paying attention to the other, making that spouse an important part, you know.
Well, I think it's also important to know what your partner you're cherishing, you know, what is her feeling of love, you know. And I'll give a funny example. My wife does not like flowers, but if I get a regular copy of Women's World, which seems kind of ridiculous sometimes to me, that would be better to bring home the flowers, you know. And that she seems to light up as though a cherishing phenomenon occurred. And maybe you could talk about what's the feedback that occurs when cherishing occurs and what's the sign that it's absent.
Yeah, you have to determine, you know, what kind of cherishing she likes. And she has to determine what kind of admiration and respect the guy likes. But for instance, you know, we know now that some women will prefer gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Some women will prefer a rub. Some women will prefer talking. There's all kinds. So you just try them out, see what works, see what shoots her rocket, you know, see what makes her happy, and do more of that.
Mm-hmm. You know, the piece of it is that after my practice marriage ended, and then I moved into my, you know, was looking, I'm not going to get married again unless I really figure out what was my part in this game and the mistake. And a lot of my mistake was just following the self-help books of this idea of, you know, making myself in what I call a sensitive new age guy, which to me really was more backbone, was gooey heart with no spine. And I look back and go, why would she respect him at all, that version of me? I mean, you know, if my ex, which is a great person, were to hear this, I'd go, I'm amazed you had any respect for me at all. I threw myself out the window. So it isn't a balance of a core along with that. And I don't think those can go independent. What do you think of that for the cherishing?
I think that's the same thing we talked about before, and that is you've got to be able to stand up for yourself. Whether it's saying no or saying what you want and need, or saying, you know, I really like to be tickled here, you know, whatever it is, but putting yourself up there, you know, along with the cherishing. You got to have both.
Mm-hmm. And they go together. What are some of the mistakes in misunderstanding in this you've seen? Because I do want to acknowledge you as I think the best therapist and advisor on men's issues and men's in therapy and men in grief, and also women understanding men I've met. So where does this tend to get misunderstood when they go up? Because that's another aspect to look at.
Thank you, Martin. The pressure's on. You know, the biggest thing that I've seen women miss is not understanding the way men process emotions. You know, they will just miss it almost every time because they're expecting him to do it like she does, which is usually talk or find a way to process or emote openly. And that's not his way. And so that creates a lot of trouble in relationships because she gets resentful. He's not dealing with things. He's going to blow. He's got all this crap. What's wrong with him? And he's going, oh, shit, let it go. Let it go. I'm doing things in my own way. And, it's interesting. He doesn't even know sometimes how he's processing, but he's doing it. He's doing it automatically. He does it because it's what works for him. And, but she certainly doesn't know, usually.
Well, that would be related to honoring and cherishing in the statement of honoring the way a man grieves and understanding it. And the problem is, certainly my experiences, most of the psychological systems I read until I got your work never really even addressed it.
Right.
They just said, let's take the feminine way of doing things, map it onto the man, then we get to make them wrong.
Yes, exactly. Right.
And then
exactly right.
And it's not that men don't have their equal dark side on it. I don't want to say that piece, but that's the way it worked, and I bought into it.
Yes.
And it was a train wreck in my life to take that advice.
Yeah.
So I think this does relate to it. It's kind of learning to appreciate and honor the way they grieve. And yours idea would be the simple question of a lot of us in my age group are losing parents. A spouse will go, well, how do I support him? Well, a question I learned from you was ask him, what do you need to do to deal with this? And how can I support you with it?
Yep.
And giving him permission that an action could be a way of grieving, not just tears or talking.
Yes. If his father died, take an active mode, an active role. And, the women that I've seen that have been successful have done things like saying, I want to take you out to dinner in honor of your father. And then they go out to dinner and they may or may not talk about his dad, but he knows that she's honoring his loss. That's all he needs to know. He needs to know that she's honoring it. And if she's doing that, then he's going to open up. Most likely, he's going to feel freer to be himself. And taking him to a ball game, taking him to a ball game. So I'm taking you to this ball game in honor of your dad. Not that they have to go and talk about the dad during the ball game. That's bullshit. He just needs to go, and she needs to do this in honor of.
Right.
Because you see, ladies, this is what men do. Men will tend to do things in honor of. And so you can take that same role on with him, and it'll impress him. He'll go, hey, she's with it. She's with me. This is what I do.
That's a wonderful example. I mean, I could, I truly believe Barbara has listened for that with the passing of my two parents. And, you need to go do this. What do we do to make it occur?
Yes.
And it definitely, with my father, I wanted to go around the area of his upbringing and stuff. So we took some time off, and she went with me, and we went to the house, the home, and stuff like that. And I talked about some of those, but she just was with me on that.
Yes.
And it was very powerful for me. I feel a real completion, not that I don't miss him every day in some way, but a completion of his life, Yes. And so I want to take it. That's one example. Can you think of an example next of where men have kind of missed the idea of cherishing and how they've missed it, where you might have been able to give them ideas? Because I think it's unfair for men that's going, well, you should cherish your wife. And frankly, to a lot of engineers, you could just, it's like someone said, well, you should blah, 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 your wife. Because it has no reference in their world of what would that look like in doing things.
Yes. And I think a safe suggestion for an engineer would be to get him to ask her about what it would be like for him to cherish her and get them talking about it. She'll be surprised that he's even asking the question to begin with, but it will teach him then what she wants, because that's what he needs to do. He needs to educate himself about what tickles her, about what gets her, what motivates her, what gets her excited, what gets her feeling like she's cared for. And, interview her, basically. And tell her, say, look, I'm ignorant of this stuff. I love you, but I really don't know how I can really cherish you. I don't know. But I want to know because I love you. When she hears that, that works.
That's just fantastic. I mean, it's just permission to ask. And I'm just thinking of my own understanding with women. I can't imagine a woman who doesn't know, who hasn't also not been asked. You got it? I mean, it's something important if it's important to them. And I love you're respectful of systems, like you said, that a certain percentage of people biologically male are masculine in their core, and a certain percentage of biological women are feminine in their core. So we aren't saying this is just black and white across the thing, but we're saying these are two dances that generally are the honoring is often more important to men and the cherishing more important to women. And when we learn it, it's more important because I can't tell you how many, men would just, I remember one time I was coaching him and he said, well, I just need to vent about my partner. He goes, blah, 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 and they don't honor me and so forth. And I said, why don't you just become gay? Because you're trying to get her you're doing to her, so you're trying to get it to be an equal playing field, and not obviously not that the gay world would be like that, but it got his attention and said maybe her needs are different than yours, and what you're doing is giving your needs and getting upset you're not getting them. Instead of noticing it could be a beautiful dance where two people have different roles, and that's what makes it wonderful.
Yes.
Anything you want to add to that or correct?
No, it's just getting to know each other in a way that you understand what makes someone interested, what makes someone feel cherished or cared for or admired.
And then I think the other thing is maybe it's okay for the engineer to just quietly put it randomly on his calendar to start developing the muscle. And it's okay that he doesn't automatically think about it. That's the thing that's important. Not a bad person. He's hardwired to accomplish things.
Right.
And it's okay to set up a mechanism, I would say asymmetrically, so it's not a pattern that shows up. To engage with that, and I think that would be another thing if I'm moving into their world to occur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you'd have? I think you're really giving a beginning. I would love to hear people add comments below of what's the difference between honoring and cherishing you think as well. I am using this for research for my own book, and Tom's one of my mentors here as well. But anything else you'd like to add on this topic?
No, I think we're good.
Well, then I just want to say, could you just share some of the great books you have and how people could find out about them? Because I think everyone should be reading at least one or two of your books, and I've gotten a lot out of them.
That's nice of you to say, Martin. First book I wrote was Swallowed by a Snake, The Gift of the Masculine Side of Healing, which is just a look at how men are different in the way they heal. The second one was The Way Men Heal, which was a very small book that's a quick fix for men. I found that a lot of men don't want the snake book because it's a little bit too much, but they will, when they're upset or in crisis, they will read a book that's 60 pages. So that's why I wrote that one. And the last one I wrote is on helping mothers be closer to their sons, which has been a dear topic to me for a long time because, the more moms can get to know their sons, the more it's going to be easier to love them and be loved back.
That's excellent. I do want to say The Way Men Heal is really for men and women. I think everyone should get it because I just remember my friend's a friend's wife said, he didn't grieve his father's passing, and I took her and showed the backyard, and I said he completely re-landscaped the backyard.
Yeah.
That he never maintained his whole life, and that's where he played with his father, and she started, she got it. And that was his action.
Yes.
And I could see, thanks to knowing your work and also giving the tools for me when my parents passed, to give myself permission to go, what do I need to do to honor their past?
Yeah.
And take action.
Yeah.
I would not have followed through and be as complete, and again, it does, so lifetime process if I hadn't done that. So thanks.
Indeed.
And I'll put links of your stuff below. And I think
I was going to say, people come see me on Patreon. You know.
Oh gosh. Oh, okay. Come on. Tell them about Patreon, because I'm a sponsor of it, and you've got some secret sauce in there. So would you
There's
please?
all kinds of things on the Patreon site, but you know, there's many of the YouTubes, but the important thing for our discussion today is there's 15 videos on the Patreon site about men and healing. Takes you from the very beginning until the very end and goes through all kinds of, it basically rewrites Swallowed by a Snake in some ways, but through video form. So, and you can come for as cheap as a couple dollars a month, you know, so.
Yep. And,
it ain't
and I'm
expensive.
a member.
And join the club. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, great. And also, I've asked questions, and you're up to giving more, creating new content based on the members' questions there, too.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'll put the links below, and
You,
I look forward to hearing others' comments on this, whatever they think. So thanks very much, Tom.
You're very welcome, Martin. Thank you for having me. We'll see you.